a stretch there in the second half, looking to light it up again. The header! Washington! This team of destiny now stands as NWSL champions.
Much has changed around the NWSL since the Washington Spirit won their first championship in club history. With the 2022 Challenge Cup about to get underway, 2 new teams will make their franchise debuts, both in Southern California, Angel City FC and San Diego Wave FC. With their additions, the 12-team tournament kicks off on March 18th. Each division will consist of 4 teams playing in a 6-game round-robin schedule, with the winners of the 3 divisions advancing to the knockout stage, the 4th being the highest-ranked runner-up team. After the semi-final matchups on May 4th, a champion will be crowned on May 7th, live on CBS. Will the NWSL defending champions tack on another trophy, or can another team come out of nowhere and win the Challenge Cup? The NWSL is back, and not a moment too soon. So the 2022 NWSL season is upon us, and here to preview the upcoming year, co-host of the Attacking Third podcast, Lisa Roman, and former US international and 2-time Olympic gold medalist, Aly Wagner, join us here on HQ. Aly, Lisa, it is so good to see you both. It is so good to be back. It's been a while, hasn't it, since we caught up? So let's start off with the big picture here with the off-season, because there's been several changes to many teams and some new additions as well. So Aly, I'll start with you here. Who, in your opinion, has had the most successful off-season?
Yeah, I mean, you said, Poppy, there's been a ton of movement across the league. I think I'm going to give the nod, though, to the Kansas City Current. This is a team that we talked about all last year is not really performing at the level they were capable of, but they had some elements that they needed to improve upon if they were to be competitive this year. And they started with their coaching staff. They moved Hugh Williams to the front office, more of a technical director, and they brought in the U23 U.S. Women's National Team coach, Matt Potter. I've already spoken to some of the players there. They've been impressed with him. They feel like they are improving under his tutelage. They like his energy. And then when you look at the team specifically, I mean, 2 key acquisitions came in the offseason. You had Lynn Williams and you had Sam Ewis. I mean, these are game changers. These are players that have incredible experience, not only in the NWSL, but with the U.S. Women's National Team. And those acquisitions are continuing to further the strength of the spine of this Kansas City squad. When you look at one area that they still may need to improve upon, it's in that number 9 spot. They've got the runners in Hamilton and Williams. They need to have more balance up top. But overall, I think this is the group that strengthened their squad the most. They brought in, a rookie in Alex Loera from Santa Clara University that can step in and earn starting minutes from the get-go, immediately improving that back line. And that's a really tall task to save a rookie, but I think she's capable.
I agree with Aly on this one. I mean, this 2021 offseason was one of the most active we have ever seen in the NWSL, and Kansas City took advantage of that in acquiring players like forward Lynn Williams and midfielder Sam Ewis. And then during the 2021 season, Kansas City acquiring goalkeeper Adriana Franch, who's really established herself between the pipes. So when you look at the big 3 on the roster and throughout the starting 11 for Kansas City, it's Franch in goal, Mewis in the midfield, and then Williams up top. And as Aly mentioned, it's the new head coach in Matt Potter. He has come in and he's really trying to just establish a culture. I spoke with Kristen Hamilton, midfielder and defender for the Current, and she said she's really pleased with all of the young players that have come in, how they've molded, how much energy they bring, and how they've elevated the overall status of Kansas Current. Chris Edmonds, another player that we could see all over the pitch for Kansas City Current. She's played in the back line, in the midfield, and we might even see her up top this season because of that versatility and that veteran ability that she brings along with a number of other players. Kansas City Current can make a really big run, not only in the Challenge Cup, but also in the regular season as this year gets going.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some massive additions for the Current, especially like you both mentioned through that core. Let's talk about on the other side of this. So Lisa, I want to start with you here. Who's a team that's maybe underwhelmed this offseason that you think might actually be in a worse place than where they finished last season?
Oh, Poppy, this is a tricky question because with all of the trades in the offseason that happened, a lot of teams lost players. And with 2 expansion clubs coming in, there was an expansion draft that was pretty big and detrimental to a lot of clubs. But when you look at the scope of the 12 clubs in the NWSL, I think the North Carolina Courage is a team that got hit pretty hard. The Courage is a team that is traditionally in the playoffs, and they fell short of that in 2021. But this offseason, they lost some key forwards in Lynn Williams and Jess McDonald, and also in Amy Rodriguez, who announced her retirement. They lost key pieces in the midfield as well, but it's that scoring component from North Carolina Courage that's lacking so far. They only have 4 forwards listed on their roster for the Challenge Cup, and one of them being Diana Ordonez out of Virginia, a college draft pick. So really that's just 3 players with NWSL experience in their front line. They do still have Brazilian international Debinha in the midfield, but she does a lot better when she has forwards up top that can work with her and play off of her. So we'll see if North Carolina can create in the front line, but that's where the Courage is going to struggle the most. And because of that, I think they're the team that got hit the hardest in this offseason.
I think that's an interesting one, Lisa, because when I look at North Carolina Courage, I think this was a team that needed that shakeup. And I almost think it's a blessing in disguise that some of those players are now going to find themselves in different environments. And I think that the new coach in Sean Nahas can start to implement his new style. I do agree they're going to struggle in this Challenge Cup. They're going to be without 2 key internationals. They picked up the Brazilian Caroline and, of course, Denise O'Sullivan, who's been incredibly central to how they play. But they do have some other good players that they were able to pick up at Wires, Dorian Boucom. So I'm not as concerned with them. I do think they brought in young rookies. Sean Nahas is incredibly familiar with the local game, the local youth game. So I think he understands the talent that he did bring in. I think this is a rebuild year. So they were a team that they weren't on my radar. They were going to go far anyways. This was just a time that they needed to have that transition. I think the team for me that I'm looking at is the one that suffered a bit in this offseason is Orlando Pride. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a bit similar to the North Carolina Courage, to your point, Lisa, and that is that they lost key veterans. They lost Allie Krieger. They lost Ashlyn Harris, their starting goalkeeper. They lost Alex Morgan. They lost Tara Lakorniak. And one of their first-round draft picks, the official, opted to go play in Mexico. So I think this is a team that now has a new coach, and Amanda Cromwell. She's coming into the NWSL. Yes, she understands American football. She was a collegiate coach at UCLA, but this is a different ball game when you're stepping up to this level. And I just don't think they've brought in players to replace that talent. I think this is a squad that did not have any wiggle room to go further down the pecking order, if you will. And I just don't see that they've brought in anything that is going to change my mind that they are going to be in the cellar when it comes to maybe Challenge Cup and ultimately regular season. This squad needs some big names, some key signings potentially coming soon. Let's hope.
So the Pride and the Courage both lost key players, but let's talk about additions, shall we? Because we've got 2 new expansion teams, both of which are close to home for you, Ali, in the Golden State. We've got Angel City and the San Diego Wave. Both teams have made some massive signings, brought some big names in. So when comparing these 2 with where they're at right now, who do you favor to have more of a successful debut season?
Well, look, it pulls at my heartstrings. I played in San Diego in the WSA years. I played for Angel in LA during the WPS years for the Los Angeles Soul. So I love both these clubs. I love where they're going to play. An incredible environment to be a footballer in California and Southern California nonetheless. But I'm giving the edge to San Diego Wave. I think this is a team that's done it right through the offseason. I like their draft picks. And when you look at the 2 squads right now, unfortunately for Angel City FC, picked up 2 key injuries in their back line. So that starting back line that we were anticipating, 2 of those players are going to be out in Sarah Gordon and Nielsen. Now you flash over to the San Diego Wave team, and they have depth all over the field. They've got experience in that back line with Dahlkemper, with Westfall. They're going to have the rookie out of Stanford, Naomi Gurma, but she's been getting time with the U.S. Women's National Team. She likely is going to be flanked with Tegan McGrady, another NWSL veteran. And then you just pop in a midfield similar situation to Emily Van Egmond. She can hold down the fort. Taylor Korniak, a player that was probably underappreciated in Orlando. She's going to come in, and I know that Jill Ellis is incredibly high on her. Nick McNabb can play in one of those double sixes if they opt for a double pivot, and then you look at the forward line. There is literally 6 players that could start, I think, in any given day. So you're going to see rotation. You've got Alex Morgan, who can spearhead But you've got Jodie Taylor, incredibly different player in that number 9 spot, and their wingers have outstanding talent, specifically Sofia Jakobsson, the international coming over from Sweden. This is one of the best players in the world we saw when Sweden took it to the United States in the Olympics. And I think we're blessed that she has picked the NWSL as this next phase in her career. So I think when you look at typical expansion teams, there's things that make them struggle. It's they don't have experience. Well, San Diego Wave has plenty of that. They don't understand how to compete in the NWSL. They have that. They don't have difference makers. They have that. So I think this is a squad that, as difficult it is to be an expansion team, they have all those key elements and they have depth. That is a rare combination. And I just, my hat's off to that organization that they've been able to assemble this fine group of players so quickly.
Aly, you mentioned you were going to struggle between picking these, but you're going with San Diego, and I like that pick a lot. I mean, both Angel City and San Diego have gotten good players, and they've established themselves, but I don't think starting in this Challenge Cup that Angel City is ready to hit the field and hit the ground running, whereas San Diego, they have so much experience. They have a lot of healthy players that are ready to go, and as you mentioned, all of the new players that they brought in, you mentioned Taylor Korniak as someone who was at Orlando Pride, was utilized a lot in the midfield. She could play up top. And she was former teammates with Alex Morgan, who will be spearheading that front line, as you mentioned. Those two played together at Orlando Pride, so they have a lot of experience. But this player right here, Alex Morgan, she is going to do so much for this team. I mean, she wanted to go to San Diego. This is her third expansion club in the NWSL. She started with the Portland Thorns in 2013, got moved to Orlando Pride when they came in, and now she's starting with San Diego. So she understands how to establish a foundation and a culture at a club that's just beginning. And she also has the pedigree on the pitch to score goals and set up great opportunities for her teammates. Ultimately, yeah, I think San Diego is going to come out on top in this expansion club battle throughout the Challenge Cup.
All right, well, that's from a team perspective, and of course a lot of excitement around those two new California clubs. But let's talk about individual players. Lisa, I want to start with you. Who is really a spotlight player for you in this new season that every time she plays, you're tuning in and that we should keep our eye on as well?
Poppy, my player is Swedish international. She's 31 years old, forward Sofia Jakobsson. She's on San Diego Wave playing alongside Alex Morgan, so I think that combination play will be really fun. But Jakobsson is a player with so much experience. 3 World Cups, 2 Olympics. She's played in Champions League, Super League, the Bundesliga. She most recently played with Bayern Munich. Didn't get enough time there, so when this opportunity was presented to her through her agent to come into the NWSL and play for San Diego, she jumped at it. This is a player that wants to continue establishing herself at the international game and with Sweden. So to do that, she wants to play at one of the top leagues in the world, and that's with the NWSL. I think that Jakobsson can provide so much experience and at the international level that she has, and just a different look to the game. And she knows how to play along. We're against a lot of these players that she'll be competing with now. So Jakobsson is a big player I'm keeping my eye on.
Absolutely love that pick. And she was on my radar for sure, Lisa. It's a player, when we talk about these internationals coming over, it's hard for them to transition this NWSL game. Well, that's not the case with Jakobsson. She knows how to play the high intensity, high pace, and physical game that is often required in the NWSL. So the transition is going to be easy for her, I would presume. And I think she is going to make a massive splash the way we saw some of those OL players from France do this last season. However, my eye is on Ashley Sanchez, young U.S. international. This is a player, and she believes that stepped it up, that was one of the bright stars, I think, in that younger squad that Vlatko Ananoski brought into the tournament. And yes, we've seen moments of magic from her throughout the course of the season last year. You're getting a good look at one of her just savviest goals that we've probably ever seen in league play, but she wasn't consistent. And I think when you're starting to get out of Ashley Sanchez is a comfort at this level to be able to compete and to play day in and day out and to cover ground. She wasn't always willing to do that dirty work, to do the running, to do the pressing. She wanted to be the creative playmaker on the ball, but now she's adding that full complement to her game. I think a lot of that does have to go, of course, to Chris Ward since he took over, but also the inclusion in the U.S. Women's National Team. So this is a player that is getting confidence, and not just in NWSL, which is incredibly important because you're playing week in and week out, but when she goes into that international level and you carry that with you, trust me, that makes a world of a difference when you return back to your club and you say, look, I've been called in with the U.S. Now I am going to lead you at home. So I think this is a player that we've got to keep an eye on this year. And of course, they've got a good squad that is going to help highlight her qualities, in particular Trinity Rodman, who is breakout rookie of the year, and also another player that we're going to continue to watch all season long.
Yeah, absolutely, Ali. I love the shout as well for Trinity Rodman. Just excited to see all this new talent that will come in from the draft. Of course, there's just so much to look forward to. So Ali, Lisa, we appreciate all the insight. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Poppy.